Okay, we got our MMOs dying, or are we just expecting too much from your boy Josh Drive Hayes? Okay, what is going on with the MMOs?
Mum says it's my turn to make the MMOs dying video this month. Hello, I'm Josh Drive Hayes. I make videos about MMORPGs. Unfortunately, because the player base of MMOs tends to be slightly older and slightly more jaded, one of the most popular types of videos in this genre is the MMOs dying video.
I think I'm subscribed to almost everyone here. Who is this? Kira? Yep. Tea Time? Don't know. Czar? Yep. Force? Yep. I don't know this one. You covered up the name. Whatever. A history of MMOs? I don't know. Mad Season? Yup. Ribero? Don't know. MMO Byte? I think I'm subbed. Lucky Ghost? I don't know. Nike? Or Nike? I don't know. Yeah, I've seen everybody. Well, most a good chunk of them.
We seem to get one every few months. It's usually a similar flavor of doom and gloom and pining for the past and missing the days gone by. Now everything has...
But also, I too am old and jaded with MMO because it's fucking annoying. And also, because of my job, it's just never a consistent thing. So I can't do things on a regular weekly basis. So, yeah.
Has been discussed, from nostalgia to the economic climate the early games released into, the early novelty of online chat rooms, the rise of pay-to-win mechanics, to MMOs cannibalizing the rather finite player base, kids preferring faster-paced matchmaking games, group finders replacing overworld community focus with digital waiting rooms. Most angles of MMO change have already been covered by many creators. Now, these creators are talented, passionate, and knowledgeable people. They're not wrong with their critiques of how the genre has changed and the way we experience MMOs and the dominance they once had.
What is this?
Over the online landscape has definitely changed from birth to now. We're not in high school anymore. Those endless late nights of guild runs on TeamSpeak are a memory. Most of us have responsibilities, but I don't think it's nostalgia to blame, and I don't think the genre is dying. You need only look at the success of the World of Warcraft OnlyFans guild drama and its stranglehold on livestream fails.
I mean, I have casually watched it, it was interesting. It was cool to see like a bunch of like names of people like all have their egos just stripped down, and everyone got to work up from square one. If you die, you got to go gain. That was kind of cool to see.
Or the constant push for Ashes of Creation, or the return of the player base every time Final Fantasy XIV has an expansion. People actively want these types of games to exist. They want to play them. But one angle I'd like to consider in relation to the modern MMO's decline and their launch is audience expectations of what kind of experience a new MMO will give them in relation to the experience they've had in an old one.
Oh, that is a good talking point. Because you know what it seems? It seems like with all the MMOs that have came and gone, it seems like every iteration of an MMO has been tried. Seemingly, there's been like your fantasy RPGs like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, so on and so forth. Shooting ones, what was it, like Planet Side? There's like so many like different types of genres for like MMOs. There's like MMO lights. I don't know. It's just there's been so many trials and failures that the only names that I can even like recognize are like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, and like everything else is just like massively below it.
Audience expectations of what this genre is and what games launching into it need to provide from day one are becoming unrealistic. I think we're reaching a theoretical stagnation point, and we now go through cycles of player base burnout, meaning expansion into other games, and then contraction back into the main...
Yeah. I guess the blue guys are like the hardcore people, and the green guys are like the casuals. I mean, it's understandable.
Successful few, with each cycle of burnout, expansion and contraction killing off the smaller games that cannot survive, consolidating the player base, which means while new, smaller games within the genre are dying, the genre itself is fine, if concentrated. So let's discuss that. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep this channel alive.
Damn, that's
More
a wall.
information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Now, unfortunately, many deeply enfranchised and sometimes unhinged MMO players assume critique of their favorite game is critique of them. This leads to them sending rather hate-filled messages, so unfortunately I need to preface this video now. Critique of a game you like isn't critique of you, and complaints against a game you have made part of your personality for some reason isn't a complaint against you. We will see later how creating deep-rooted emotional bonds to a game, essentially validating your physical self through your virtual identity, is absolutely a thing hardcore players do, and many MMOs encourage, but it is also remarkably unhealthy and sometimes even dangerous. Now,
I mean, I don't think I do that now. I used to do that when I was a little kid, though. 100%. Back in like the beginning days of me playing like World of Warcraft on original, like Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. I didn't even have a computer like in my bedroom. It was like the family computer, and I would be in, what was it, TeamSpeak, and I had my guild that people would just like jump into. And I think our guild leader's name was like Ted or something, and I think he lived in like an apartment with his girlfriend. And that was like, and I think I was like a little kid. Well, not like little kid, but like, was I in like middle or high school or something? I was either in middle school or high school, and it was like, there was this other dude in there, I forgot his name, but he was like a warrior, and he's like, he showed me what dubstep was for the first time. And I remember how he told me, because I think he like put it on like to like, come over like his output, and everyone was like, "Ooh, what's that music you're playing?" And he was like doing some like BGs or whatever, and he's like, "It's dubstep, man. You like it?" And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." Oh man. And then like a good couple years I was like all into like dubstep with like Skrillex and all that shit. I mean, I eventually grew out of it, but it was a fun little phase.
Now, for player expectations, context is key here. We need to set a baseline with what normal non-MMO games do, how the player relates to them and enjoys them, and then how all genres change over time anyway, before adding in the absurd development time and costs now associated with MMOs, the curse of the forever game. How many MMOs rely on creating a connection to community over gameplay, and then linking it together to explain MMO stagnation?
I mean, because at the time, like back in the day, everyone wasn't as connected to the internet as they are now. So like pick your favorite social media. There was no like little communities. The only community was whoever was on like your AOL instant messenger friends list, or whatever game had like a friends list, or like your Xbox friends list, your PlayStation friend list, or in this case, your MMO friends list, like in your guild. Everything was like way more tight knit. You know, a lot of the times in games, you can just like be in Discord and just completely ignore the game's community features or TeamSpeak features or whatever, because I mean, everyone just has access to Discord.
This means we'll be layering understanding of one concept onto understanding of another to get a more complete grip of what's actually happening, but bear with me, I'll break it all down into bite-sized chunks and it will make sense. So let's start with the most basic early video game business model. Here's the classical gaming release, the idealized 5 steps. A company has an idea for a game, so raises some money and makes the best possible game they can. That's important. People then buy it and play it. They complete it, then they move on and play another game. That's an essential step. But the final step is if a player wants to return and play the game again, they can. Nothing will have changed. Sometimes stuff gets added. Your life situation and the involvement of others will of course have changed from the first time you played it to now,
right.
but the game experience itself will not. That won't have changed too much at all. Now, I've simplified this to an absurd degree, but each step in this classical idealistic process actually has a rather strong benefit to the player. The company raises money and makes the game, and once it's made, that's kind of it. The game releases, yes, you'll have marketing and maybe some support staff, but it's usually money invested, game made, investment.
Bro, look at this tank movement on Lara Croft. Like there's, was there a strafe in Tomb Raider? This tank movement is crazy.
Recouped by selling the game and the game being good. So there's a rather vested interest in the game being good because the quality of the game will become the main income point. Better games tend to sell more. Microtransactions come later. For now, the sale of the game is the main income. People buy the game, usually a one-time purchase, then they own the game. They can play it on any console which can run it or install it on several computers. If it's on their shelf, it's theirs. Play at your own pace. The simplicity of this is beautiful. There's no fear of missing out, no time-limited offers, no pressure to finish within a month. It's your game. Play it when you like. And call me archaic, but I quite like this system. Then the player completes the game. The game has a story arc, a beginning, a mechanical or narrative interesting middle bit, and then a satisfying ending. Loose ends are tied up. The credits roll. The art is over. It doesn't need to drag on for the sake of dragging on. It is exactly...
It doesn't need to drag on like every other intellectual bastardized IP nowadays that it had like a maybe like 1 or 2, possibly even 3 games or whatever. And now it's just like on the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th installment of the game because no one can just let it die and be like its own encapsulated story. It's like, nope, people know this IP. There's like brand awareness about it. So we got to keep this dead husk of an IP alive.
As long as it needs to be to keep the quality as high as it can. Then, and this is important, players move on and play other games. The game wants a set amount of your time, it will give you a set experience, and once you've had that experience, off you go. Experience other games. Enjoy variety. The key point is the game doesn't benefit from keeping you around any longer because it can't gain any more money out of you.
It can't gain any more money out of you. It can't gain any more retention out of you. That's a popular statistic these guys like to use. Because they associate player retention with player happiness, or like the game's really fun because players are just sticking around. Meanwhile, there's no inner critique of like what do the players actually sticking around think about the game, and whatever they say, they just ignore it and chalk it up to like community engagement or whatever.
It's not harmed if you go and play other games. And if you do want to return to this game in the future, that's fine too, like reading a favourite old book or watching a favourite old film. Stability can be nice. Sometimes nostalgia even holds up. I have a whole second channel about reviewing older games through a modern lens. I've even discovered some games I've never played that I now really enjoy. That's the classical ideal of making a video game. But MMOs sort of changed this formula, refining it, and not for the better, because it shares a lot in similarity with a casino. You can't really map the steps of normal game design onto an MMO because they are both trying to gain different things from the players. It's no longer about being a good game as much as it is about being a good enough game which holds an online community. And then the connections the players form to the experience as a whole keeps them around. They become citizens and heroes of a virtual world, with all the emotional investment and parasocial attachment that brings. They're not just people playing a game they'll move on from. They are customers and denizens of your online virtual reality, and will stay that way for as long as you can keep them there. The initial sales of an MMO are no longer the primary income source for the game, and this has a knock-on effect on just about everything. First off, the money needed to make a new MMO is just astronomical.
What game is this with all of these mounts? Like Okami, some pig, like 4 tigers, like some horses, like 7 different pigs.
expect a new game to release with a similar amount of content to other already established games, which is simply unrealistic. If another game has been out for 10 years, it has had 10 years worth of growth. A new game will not. But players keep demanding it, and companies keep trying to develop it, and development costs go up and up and up, which means they have a vested interest in gaining more and more and more money from you. This leads to a situation where you don't just buy it and play it.
Which, in that part, never really... Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just, like, out of the loop on this one. Like, if a game just stays around for, like, years and years, how does, like, rising developmental cost go up? Like, actually, how? Like, I'm just, like, so in the fog on this one. Like, understandably, like, it's... I mean, I get, like, there's inflation, like, server costs, like, there's, like... It's like a regular other service, or I would imagine. Like, maybe 1 year it costs like X amount of dollars to like keep a server going. But then next year, because inflation, it goes up a couple hundred or $1,000 or whatever. So it's like, okay, we got to make some more content to like give the players in order for them to like pay us to like make money to keep the servers running, or however they do it. But like, if that's like it, just like inflation or whatever, I don't know. I'm just not sold on like rising developmental costs. If a game just stays around like really long.
You buy it, subscribe to it, and possibly buy the additional battle pass, or in-game premium currency, or cosmetics, or physical collector's edition with exclusive in-game stuff, and now each of these things could be a video unto itself. But the biggest effect of MMO design is in the next two steps. You don't complete it, because MMOs aren't designed to be completed. In fact, the complete opposite. And the few players who do manage to hit the completion of a game, such as achieving a completionist cape in RuneScape, or every single achievement in WoW, are heralded as masters of the game. It is an event because it is not expected. But doing
yeah, I mean, I think whenever I played like World of Warcraft, I tried to go around and like do as much of the achievements as I could, but then by the time I got close, back in OG like Wrath of the Lich King, like Kata came out, and I was just like, oh well, I tried. I mean, I could have kept going, but I was just like, oh, this is how it goes. Like the next expansion comes out, and there's just like a gigantic list of like new stuff. Oh, okay. And so I kept playing for like a couple months with Kata, but then I was just like, okay, I'm bored.
This comes at a cost to you personally, most notably how you will not have time to play other games to this level.
What is this? Average hours taken to max out an OSRS character. According to most estimates, it takes on an average of several thousand hours to max out OSRS character, with dedicated players often spending between 2 to 5K hours, depending on their chosen training methods, efficiency, blah, 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 and 99 in all skills required a significant amount of grinding experience. Jesus. Yeah, like MMOs were like live service before live service was live service. Like everyone gives live service games like shit because it's just like seasonal like slop content. It's like, in a way, like MMOs were doing that way before live service was a thing. I mean, I think most people, whenever they think about like games, they I mean, you already said it, like people want like a beginning, middle, and an end, like a completion point. But like MMOs don't really follow that. Like you could make the argument that like, oh, the single player or like the quest chain or something like that, like there's that part of it. But then, you know, there's dungeons, there's raids, there's PvP, there's other activities, blah blah blah, yada, like achievements, transmog, all this other shit. And it's like, for some people, that's a good thing. That's what they want. But I think for other people, they just want like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if they're looking for that in an MMO, they're just going to be disappointed. there's just like endless amounts of content. It's like what's that one analogy with like the two ice cream shops of one ice cream shop has like 100 flavors, the other one only has like 4. But the people that get their ice cream from the 100 flavor shop, like they leave the store and they feel regret because they like could have gotten something else, versus like the guys that got the ice cream from the 4, they walk out of the shop and they're like, I think I made a pretty good choice.
Scene in the TV show NCIS, a show famous for trying to add the most ridiculous computer things ever, where a detective meets a video game player and recognizes her as the person who has the highest score in almost every online game ever. This
yeah, like anybody that is like even like a casual video game player knows how stupid that is. Like whoever did that little plot point, I mean, that just seems like the most stupid thing I could imagine for a plot point. Oh yeah, all video games have like high scores, and this is the one person that has every high score ever in every video game of all time.
Firmly cements the show in the no idea how games work territory, but it also reinforces how that's just not possible, and completing an MMO is a lifelong goal. Guild Wars 1 has gods walking amongst mere mortals, an incredibly demanding title, and you're unlikely to meet someone who has that title and a RuneScape completionist cape, and every WoW achievement, and every Guild Wars 2 achievement, and every Elder Scrolls Online achievement.
Yeah.
Because those achievements have surpassed what we would consider traditional video game.
ESO to get all achievements after 18,000 hours? Holy shit. I heard about the Annie Fuchsia thing about she 100% got all the achievements. That was crazy. And then that was quickly taken away when the next expansion came out with more achievements. I was like, surprise. You're not done.
Game achievements and are encroaching onto the professional of a hobby area. But it's highly likely you could meet someone who has completed and platinumed every Tomb Raider game, because the design and the time demands of the games are different. Those games don't benefit from keeping you around once you have seen everything they have to offer. MMOs do. So from a company's point of view, the ideal MMO player picks a game and sticks with it, because an addicted player, an enfranchised player, has the potential to become a whale, a high-spending individual.
Company's ideal MMO player sticks with the same game.
Sticks with it because an addicted player, an enfranchised player, has the potential to become a whale, a high-spending individual.
I mean, I think maybe yes and no. Yes, like every addicted player does have the potential, but usually with MMOs, the people that are like really, and this is like whenever you play like an MMO and you're just like a regular dude, chances are you don't have a lot of money, but the one thing that you do have is a lot of time, or at least I did when I was like a kid, depending on who's the target audience and who's like what age brackets are taking up with like how much of the pie and all this other shit. Like understandably, like adults have like less time and more money, but younger people have more time and less money. So if the young person dedicates more and more time, I mean, does that necessarily mean in a couple years that they're gonna make more money? I mean, well, not really. But if you try to hook, line, and sinker that older person that maybe has a job, and you got to get them you got to get your clutches in there like just enough so that they feel invested. Well, they got money, they can spend money on the game because they got like a job, they got like their shit kind of together. So
We've looked before at how whale hunting is a gaming science, with so many MMOs incentivized to add more content, more challenges, more stuff, just to keep those whales on their game. Which tracks, because the kind of person who is going to get deeply...
Yeah, I saw that, like, with the bot long boys. That was a day.
involved into an MMORPG.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this was all scripted.
G is often the kind of player who enjoys having a lot of content to experience. And if content is then king, older games have the crown. Because older MMO games have an absolute ton of content by virtue of simply being around longer and having more time to add stuff. The original EverQuest, as of this video, has 31 full expansions. If a new MMO released an expansion every 6 months, it wouldn't catch up in 15 years. Now, this amount of content takes years to make and should not be expected straight out of the gate, but it has been normalized as expected. And this is where audience expectations comes in, because what an MMO player often wants, years of content and fleshed out endgame, is not provided by newer games as much as older games, simply because they haven't got to that point yet. Consider what different players want. Some want graphics, some want combat, some want PvP, some want epic storylines, fantasy, sci-fi, some want deep mechanics. But what a player wants will change genre to genre, game to game. Is there any through line that almost every player shares? Well, let's take another genre to have a look at an example. Real-time strategy, one of my favorites. Build up an army, go and attack somebody else. Now, in my experience, people who enjoy these games place greater emphasis on gameplay and mechanics over graphics or narrative. You may feel different, I'm just going off what I've experienced over the years. Because the real-time strategy player tends to have a focus on mechanical complexity and balance, older games which have had longer to add stuff and refine their gameplay simply provide what the player base of this genre wants better. Age of Empires 4 is fine, but many prefer Age of Empires 2 simply because of how many player mods it has, how many armies, the units. It provides the experience the player base want from this genre. Even though it's older, Command & Conquer Red Alert 2 hits that balance of action and tactics in a way which Command & Conquer 4 missed, showing that newer doesn't always mean better. Newer means different, and sometimes that difference is not an improvement.
I mean, I could say the same thing about like the FPS genre. Like if you say like shooter, you know, I could make an umbrella of like a ton of branching things like first-person shooter, third-person shooter, roguelike, single player, multiplayer, competitive, tag FPS, battle royale, like in everything under the sun. There's not really like one best version of like a shooter. I think there can be room for like many different like subgenres of like a shooter game. But much the same way that I think there could be many different subgenres of shooters, I don't know if there is like enough people that are okay with having like a bunch of different like MMOs. Like you play Final Fantasy essentially for like the story. Like yes, there's a little bit of everything like WoW, but that's like mainly the MSQ main story quest chain. That's like what people boast that it's like the best at. You play World of Warcraft for like a high skill like PvP, like rating, M+, like the game's very responsive and it's got like decent enough graphics. What else? What was it? There was like OSRS and Guild Wars. I mean, I just simply haven't played those. But it's like because I think there's like less like time investment in like the shooter sub like categories. I think it's kind of hard to like be a multi like MMO like player. Like as from like the perspective of like a regular dude. Like if I'm trying to play one MMO, I'm probably just gonna play the one my friends are playing. And I'm not gonna like be able to go off and experience all these other different ones to figure out like, oh, this one does that good, this one does this good, that one does that good. And because of that, it's like my perspective on MMOs can be like kind of warped because you need like such a big time investment in just the genre period, or that's what the genre demands of the player.
Companies may realize, hey, we've not had a real-time strategy game in a while. Then, instead of looking at what real-time strategy players actually want in a game, they look at what modern gaming is as a whole, then try and force that kind of audience into a vaguely real-time strategy-shaped game. Then they wonder why their newer game doesn't appeal to an established older player base. If what your core audience want is already being delivered to them, what is going to make them come to your game and stay if it doesn't deliver that? Now,
one sentence or comment that I think I remember is like, when it comes to like making like new games and shit, it's like, how'd the comment go? It's like, you want to deliver an experience to a player that they didn't know they wanted. So with that comes a lot of risk on whether or not like the established core audience like wants it or not, or maybe you have like some core people that like go over and try the new thing, but then you attract like people that haven't played the new thing ever before, and it's like, oh, maybe kind of like in the case for like modern day Monster Hunter. There's like modern Monster Hunter versus like old Monster Hunter, where like old Monster Hunter was like a lot of like prep time and not a lot of like clues and shit, like what you have to do or like what counters what or whatever. But modern day Monster Hunter is very like casual friendly, new player friendly. Like there's a good chunk of people that just simply don't like new Monster Hunter because it's so easy. So like there's like the core Monster Hunter people that like go and play like the older ones because they think those ones are better.
Nostalgia is absolutely a factor in this, of course, but going in depth on that psychological draw is a whole different video. So let's just agree nostalgia is a factor in deciding what game to play, but audience expectation is the focus here. To circle back to MMOs, we then need to ask, what does an MMO player want? And this varies. Some want combat, some want narrative, some want PvP, some want fantasy Eastern style graphics, some want grounded Western style, some want pay to win, others don't. The wants of each MMO player are of course different. But there's one thing, one narrative thread, a through line that almost every MMO player does want, one thing we agree on. We all want a massive game. It's right there in the first M of the acronym. We want loads of stuff. Years of content, a second world to live in. The dedicated MMO...
I want Metaverse, the MMO.
player doesn't want to blitz through a game in 10 hours, 100 hours, maybe even 1,000 hours. They want a single game they can treat as an alternate reality, a hobby. And it's this combination of player investment, burnout, and expectations for what the game can give, which leads to this inevitable cycle. A player finds an MMORPG game they like. They invest in it, play it for weeks, months, or years, sink a load of their free time into it, and the nature of MMO design encourages this. It facilitates it. It releases more content, more grinds, more long-term goals. And this is great. The mechanics of the game may not be the greatest, but the mechanics are secondary to the experience as a whole, because the player has formed friendships, bonds, guilds. They've become known within the community. The game becomes more than a game to them. It becomes a home. But eventually, the design of endless grind will cause a player...
And this is kind of interesting. I just thought about, there's like a high need for MMOs to have their players emotionally invest in a game. And if I just sit back and look around, at least in America, not a lot of people are wanting to invest in like anything. I don't know. It's just like the vibes I see. Like, not a lot of people are getting married, or like maybe the divorce rate is down, but like also the marriage rate is also down. Not a lot of people are having kids. Like, people just simply aren't having sex as much or whatever. So it seems like people don't even want to invest in each other anymore. They want like a more casual, like low investment type of experience. And with that, it kind of goes against everything that MMO is trying to push, it seems. So are MMOs dying? I mean, with that into going into perspective, I mean, it's just, I think the culture is like changing potentially, of just like the vibe of everybody, really.
To burn out and fancy a change, if only for a little bit. As lovely as home is, we all like a holiday. And so they swap games, but on average, studies have shown that they only swap games for a bit before coming home. Much like a holiday, it's not permanent. They will try a new game, and suddenly they're not part of the established community already. They are a new player. They have no emotional investment in this new game they try, which means the mechanics of that game, instead of being secondary as they were in their home, are now the focus on their holiday. And they question, is this fun to play without friends?
Yeah.
Is it a good game without all of the supporting lifestyle and connections that we've made? Does it stand up without nostalgia? Much like how making friends as an adult is far harder than making friends as a kid, interaction with other players in this new game to you becomes sparse. It becomes difficult. You don't want to put the emotional time, energy, and investment into building an entire new friendship group up again, and now the game needs to shine on its own mechanical merits, which sets up a bit of a paradox. We judge our favorite MMORPG heavily off the emotional experiences we had within it, and we judge newer games off the mechanical experiences we have within them. Now, some people may indeed find a new game they actually prefer by doing this, but the call to your home is only ever one expansion away. One new raid, one new class revealed, and then your holiday ends, your emotional connection kicks back in, and you want to return to familiar ground with familiar faces and familiar mechanics. Back to...
I mean, you showed like World of Warcraft when you like said that, but like, I don't know, like I'm 35, and like I think there was a time when WoW could kind of do that to me, of like, oh, you play the game a little bit, you come back, or you get done with it, you leave it, and then you come back for like the next patch or something. I don't know, it's just, the older I got, the more I'm just like, oh, well, nothing's really changing about the game. I mean, yes, the game is changing, like new expansion, new classes, mechanics, buffs, nerfs, whatever. Like, all that stuff is changing, but like, I think I just got sick and tired of like the game loop is really what I think people get sick and tired of the game loop. People get sick and tired of running on the hamster wheel, the treadmill. And it's not just like a single person can, like your entire friend group can, because like you could go through this like with you and your boys, and everybody can like kind of feel it.
To what you know. As nice as novelty is, familiarity is a soft, comforting blanket. Other genres experience this too. However many racing games release, I will still prefer Burnout 3 on the PS2 or SSX Tricky. However many first-person shooters we get, I'll always enjoy Unreal Tournament or the original Modern Warfare 2 because they provide the experience that I want. But unlike those games, which can still exist with no player base and multiplayer matches can be made as and when you need them, MMOs do need a player base to survive because they have ongoing hosting costs, or any new player that arrives will just instantly leave when they realize there's no one around. This is where the effective culling of the player base caused by the expansion and contraction phenomenon we'll look at in a second effectively happens. Let's visualize this. Imagine 3 games, we'll just call them A, B, and C, each with a player base of 100 people. This is unrealistic, but it keeps the numbers nice and simple. People will play their game until they get burned out. This will differ from person to person. Some people will commit their entire life to it, some people will leave within a week. But let's imagine the next time we check these numbers, we discover that 20 players from game A have gone to game B, 10 from game B have gone to game C, and 5 from game C have gone to game A. Does this mean game A is dying? Does it mean B is growing? Does it mean C is somewhat stable? It could mean both all of and none of these things. It could be the natural flux of a finite amount of players within a genre simply moving around. But what happens when an expansion for game B releases and suddenly 20 players from A and 20 players from C decide to hop back over? Is B now the best game? Do players from A and C suddenly look at the numbers and think, oh no, my game is dying, best hop ship to a successful one, and B now gains more players?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask like a little kid, they'll be like, yeah. But if you ask like an older person, they'll be like, it's the best one right now until I feel I'm done. And, you know, until like game A comes out with their expansion, until game C comes out with their expansion, and then people will hop and keep on going, or maybe not. Maybe they'll stay.
Maybe A and C both respond by releasing expansions at the same time, and B loses a ton of players to both of them. But now imagine a new company has seen this finite player base and wants a piece of the pie, so they create Game D. Now, because D is new, it doesn't have as much content as A, B, or C, but it has a new art style and a new combat loop, so a few people from each game go to try it, because they're burnt out of their current game. It might even bring some entirely new people into the genre who weren't there before, which is great. But then, over time, those players also go through the same burnout cycle and expand away from D to try one of the other 3 games, A, B, or C.
Damn.
Maybe D releases an expansion to encourage people to return, but it's now competing with 3 already established games, and it just can't keep up with the amount of content. And it's starting to lose money too, because it was expensive to make and expensive to run, so it adds some pay-to-win stuff into the cash shop to milk the whales it does have. We can start to see that D is like...
Why you gotta... God damn it. Why you gotta add the horse in there? Oh, putting the damn horse in there is perfect.
Likely to fall into a spiral of pay to win, which, while undoubtedly generating money in the short term, is going to have long-term ramifications for its stability. Now imagine this kind of battle playing out every month. But remember, each of these games is also expensive to run. They have upkeep costs, and every time they lose a player to another game, they lose money. And operating at a loss eventually leads to a game shutting down. How long each individual game can operate at a lower player count for depends on the company funding it, how deep its pockets are. But each game will have its own limit.
So then... is the answer just the best MMO is the one that the company's pockets are the deepest and can operate at a loss for longer? I mean, that doesn't seem right.
Cycle plays out more and more every year. Players move from game to game, burning out, trying a new thing, then returning home. And every year, more and more games try to enter the MMO arena, bringing new players with them into the genre, taking existing players temporarily from existing games. Then those players burn out and return home or try other games. The only question is, will that new game survive and become a mainstay of the genre, or ultimately just another part of this inevitable churning cycle that brings players in, then consolidates them all into a larger game? This closed ecosystem of players who want MMO experiences continues to bounce from game to game, because for the average player, each game cannot be completed, only played until your own personal burnout limit is reached. This means you'll see established game populations rise and fall like the ebbs and flows.
I mean, there is the own personal burnout thing, but I don't know, maybe that was like more of a thing in the beginning, but then I don't know, if we go with the fact that like a lot of people that play MMOs are kind of older, you would kind of think that they're kind of educated. So with that, you only play the MMO that the content is like most current, and then once you complete that content within the patch, it's like, oh, I completed the game, so now I'm free to go do like some other game. And it's just like, instead of completing one MMO, you were like completing all the MMOs at like the slowest rate possible. So that way you have like infinite content seemingly.
Of the tide. And then when a new game appears, it will boom in popularity from...
Bro, what is this walk cycle? Where there's like the legs aren't moving, it's just like, this was New World and like early days. Holy.
Novelty and holidaying players then stabilize at whatever population.
Like, look at that dude.
Decide to make that game their home, which is usually far lower than the maximum player cap it saw, as many of those players return to their...
Damn. Peak almost a mil, but then just 24-hour peak is just like 10K. Like, wah. That's a big drop off.
original game. We saw this happen when New World released. If we take regular single-player games and visualize the same system, it would be game releases, gets completed, all the player base move on to the next game, complete it, player base move on, complete, move on, with each game designed to be...
But when you use the Souls-like genre, I could just as easily say that while it's not an enclosed system, like moving on, I think moving on from game to game is kind of similar to like moving on from an expansion to expansion, I could say. But within an expansion of an expansion, just for Dark Souls, you could easily say, oh, I'm done with Dark Souls. Maybe some other Souls-like game is out, so I'm gonna go play another Souls-like game. So that person that likes the Souls-like genre is just gonna game hop, and then maybe they beat that game, they game hop again, play another Souls-like, and then it's like, oh, Dark Souls 2 came out, so I'm gonna go back to Dark Souls. It's like the new expansion, but it's the new game. But does that mean that Dark Souls is dying when people are not playing it? Much the same way if people game hop from MMO to MMO. I don't know. That's why I think it's like different for like Soul single player games. Like if you play Dark Souls and it accrues like X amount of audience, like affinity, like people like it, then it's like, oh, when the second one comes out, it's got a blast. It's Dark Souls 2, and this is like the people that are like half and half on it, but like let's just say it's like the better one. You know, like the core audience came from that, like this one, and then they build on it to make the number bigger, and some new people came. It's like, oh, it's more, so it built more of a reputation. Then 3 comes out and it's even better. You know, and so like the was it like the peak player for this was like say 100K. This is like 200K, and this is all of a sudden it's like 700K peak player playing the game. I don't know what I completely lost my track of thought.
As fun as it can be, so players want to move on to the next one. The MMO genre, by design, wants to keep players on a game as long as possible, which means games need to both evolve but also not change. Because major changes are risky, you are moving the player base on. Sometimes this works, like Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, with the latter being hugely successful. Sometimes it doesn't, like old school RuneScape and RuneScape The Evolution of Combat, with the older version being more dominant. So with all this theory discussed, why do people say the genre is dying? Well, remember we discussed that whatever a player may want,
Why do people say MMOs are dying? It's because people probably base their opinions on like the most popular MMOs. So let's just say World of Warcraft. They see World of Warcraft and they're like an average player. And so they see like what everybody else sees. They see the streamer people playing, the YouTube people making YouTube videos of it. And it's like, oh, they're doing this and this with their friends. I'm just a regular average player. Maybe I have like at least like one other friend. Maybe I have like no friends to play the game with. And I don't know, you have to like really dig in there and like get your hands in the mud to see like why people are saying the things. I mean, then you have to examine like why people leave MMOs. And it could be like a myriad of reasons.
All want a massive game. Every expansion and contraction cycle a game survives gives it the chance to become bigger, to add more stuff. It's like those snake IO games, larger snakes consuming smaller snakes and more content. It's a major pull for the player base. So newer games are expected to release with as much content as the big boys have, but without the years of success and income and adapting they've gone through. If they don't have this and can't provide the experience that an MMO player wants, how many expansion and contraction cycles can that new game survive? Especially when players will start with that game, discover other games, and then move over to them. This leads to a situation where MMO players on average value the sheer amount of content in a game above other things. Players may have graphical preferences or narrative design preferences, but collectively we all want our massively multiplayer game to be massive. This gives...
I mean, yeah, But I mean, again, if we just look at like the tippity top games, it's like how massive is massive enough versus too massive? Because having like a game like WoW that's been around for like what, like 20ish years, like a new player that's never played anything before can look at that and be like, yeah, that's too big. I'll never finish that. And just the massive part being like that big is a turnoff.
Gives player retention advantages to games which simply have more content, and this is seen in older, more established games. So the genre is not dying because there are still players, but the player expectation of what an MMO is and the extreme amount of content an MMO is expected to have are so warped by what long-term major games have given them that new games struggle to compete. They don't survive the expansion and contraction process, they lose players to larger games which provide a better experience and fall into a death spiral because they're not making money. The gameplay experience and amount of content an MMORPG player wants is just better served by a game that's already been providing that for years. Consider that if World of Warcraft had never existed and yet the genre had still succeeded, if World of Warcraft released as it released back then today, it itself may not survive.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. There's no way, because then it would be competing with like everything else that's not World of Warcraft.
Because it would not have as much content as Final Fantasy XIV,
Yep.
Guild Wars 2, or The Elder Scrolls Online. So the MMO genre isn't dying. However, new games which release into the genre often do die because the players who enjoy the genre may go to try the new game but ultimately realize they aren't having their needs or expectations met by that new game.
Ooh.
We've almost built ourselves into a catch-22. Newer MMOs struggle due to lack of content, but they'd only gain that content if they survived, which they need the content to do. It's a
Yeah, it's like I can see like the rapid circle of it all. So, are MMOs dying? I think it's. I don't. This sounds like silly to say. I think if World of Warcraft dies, the MMOs genre will thrive. But since most people think MMO, think WoW, it's like, well, there can be only like one biggest guy in I don't know, in the house or something. I don't know. Like if WoW were to just like kick the bucket somehow, I would have to believe that like all the other MMOs would just like rise up, right? It would just have to. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, are MMOs dying with everyone going off and playing everything else, but that's not WoW?
cycle, and companies are realizing that trying to break into it is just far too expensive. This means the players those newer games brought in, if they like the genre as a whole, will then migrate to another game, and the migration will continue until they settle in a home. And then, when they are burned out of the home, they'll expand and contract again, with the death cycle of games happening slowly, consolidating all the players down into just a few behemoths of the genre.
Yeah.
A few largest games, the ones capable of surviving a downturn in players because they have the most money. As for the undeniable reduced market dominance of MMOs when compared to online games like Fortnite, League of Legends or Roblox, MMOs may be older, slower, a gameplay experience that plays out over weeks instead of hours, but they never survived from their gameplay alone. They survived by being a community, an online consistent existence, a digital third space when physical third spaces are becoming rarer. And until people stop wanting that third space between work and home, they will keep existing.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there. I mean, when people don't want digital, even digital third spaces, then MMOs are like truly dead. I mean, because like I don't know, it just I think it depends on like the person itself. I mean, depending on what like business model, like World of Warcraft's the only one that still like does the monthly sub thing, so that's like a barrier right there. So unless you're WoW, your model has to be free to play. But then if you're free to play, you have to have like paid bullshit in there just to compete. So like if that's the case, then it's no longer a game of if you can invest enough time, you'll be like good enough in the game or something like that, versus someone that just skips all the bullshit and just pays to like win in the game. And that creates what do you call it? Like an unhealthy like player ecosystem, I would say. And if that's the case, when people realize that, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna like up and quit the game. And but like there's like a couple games where like that's not the case, like Final Fantasy, Guild Wars, or OSRS. It's a very nuanced like question. Are MMOs dying?
Thank you for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to our Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. And as always, have a great day.
Dang. That was... I can't believe I waited so long to like watch this. I mean, for me personally, like, I think I gave up on MMOs like years ago. I'm just like, too much time investment, too much FOMO. Even if my friends are playing it, I'm just like, nope, don't want it, don't care. I don't care about whipping out the damn MMO mouse with all the damn buttons on the thumb or whatever. I mean, that's just my opinion personally. Like, I don't want to have to deal with all the time investment of a game. I mean, like, and understandably, like, the best point in time when an MMO is, like, great is, like, when it first comes out. Anytime, like, no one knows the meta, no one knows what's good or bad or whatever, like any other game. But the moment a game starts to become, like, established, it's, like, the meta is defined and all this shit. It's, like, the new player experience, like, suffers, like, a shitload. But, I don't know. I don't know if there can be another good like MMO or whatever. Like, will will Ashes of Creation be able to pop off? Will Chrono Odyssey be able to pop off? I mean, as it is, like, for either of those games, I don't think so. It's just like a money sink. but yeah, other than that, it was a baller ass video. Bunch of time and effort I could tell went into this to like figure out all the nuances of what makes an MMO great or bad or whatever. Is it dying? What are people expecting out of an MMO? I think MMOs will. It's like a grape that is like getting turned into a raisin. It feels, and like if all of the MMO genres are like inside a grape, more and more are just being squeezed out. All the juice is getting squeezed out, and the only like remaining things are going to be like the 4 games that you showed: WoW, Final Fantasy, OS, and Guild Wars, and maybe like ESO, maybe. And it's like, if those are like I can't imagine if the shooting genre was like that. Like, I kind of can, but also no, not really, because I don't know, maybe just because like I like shooters a little bit more, or maybe I'm like starting to like Souls like more. Like, for there to be only like less than a handful or about a handful of MMOs that define the genre, for me to apply that to like FPS or like Souls like, it makes no sense. Because I could think of like a bunch of different great FPS. I could think of a bunch of great Souls likes, or like action RPGs, or action combat games and shit like that. And it's like, it just simply doesn't make sense. I mean, for like the reasons you like said before. But yeah, great video, dude. what's the vibes everyone's feeling? Like, it isn't about MMOs are dying. It's about why aren't new MMOs successful? Yeah, because they don't got enough content, potentially. But then if that's the case, then the new MMO should be like attracting more newer players because it's not as daunting as the established MMOs, right? A major problem I notice with all MMOs is that gameplay in MMOs starts at the end. Yeah, I mean, but that we can thank like probably World of Warcraft for that. The entire leveling journey is treated as an afterthought. I mean, yeah, and overworld content is basically just filler now. Yep. I've had 3 MMOs recently where I've been told, yeah, you don't actually have to try this game until you're max level and you get to the end game grind. It's like, yeah, I don't want to have to play an MMO for like 50 hours just to get to the end game, and that's where the game gets good. Like, that sounds like bullshit to me. The latest model. Idea for a game no one asked for. Rush game through development. Release game early with lots of bugs. Hot fix it. Fire the development team. Yeah, that does seem like the latest model. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Again, great video, dude. Yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.